there, friend, and welcome to the Fancy Scientist podcast. Last time we talked all about scientific conferences and how it is now almost summertime, which is the start of conference season. So today we are going to talk about the biggest networking mistakes that people in wildlife careers make. Now, this is around the topic of scientific conferences, but actually a lot of networking happens outside of scientific conferences. So whether you're going to a meeting or not, you definitely want to listen to this episode. It applies to you. I've been in this field now for 20 years. And I've gone to conferences since 2006. And to be honest, I really didn't know how to network well, even though I'm a social person. I'm a very social person. I'm very good at talking to people. But I didn't know how to network in order to get me the results that I wanted from networking. In fact, I didn't even know really what those results were. And it really took me like 15 years to learn this. Nobody taught this to me. So you are going to learn a ton from listening to this episode. So let's just go ahead and get into it. What are the 9 biggest mistakes that people make in wildlife careers when it comes to networking? We are going to start right at number 1 because this is the most important one. And although I'm not building up for suspense, the following ones kind of have to play into some of the ones that come before them. So we're going to go right in with a bang. And the biggest mistake that people do is not networking. It's so simple. I mean, it's simple, but it's not necessarily easy because we don't know how to do it. But the biggest mistake overall is just not doing it. So just the fact that you are here on this podcast shows that you are the type of person who is really ready to work on their career and be successful at it. So this is the first step, understanding how to do it. And networking is so important because although experience is the most important thing in our field, when I was applying for jobs, that was the biggest reason why I didn't get jobs when I interviewed for them, is that there was just somebody who was more qualified than me. And it wasn't even that I had a lack of experience. It was that there was just somebody a little bit more perfect for the job. So experience and having the right experience, not just any general experience, is what you need. For example, when I applied for a mammologist position at a state agency, they were looking for somebody who not only knew mammals well, but had red wolf experience. And the person they hired, you bet that they had red wolf experience. They did. So it's about having the right experience for the job that you are applying to. And even if you know people, this has happened to me a couple of times where actually I was already working for the people who were hiring, but I still did not get jobs because somebody else just had more experience than me. Again, it wasn't that I did anything wrong. It's not that I had bad experience or not enough experience. I certainly had enough experience. But for one job, I was competing against somebody who had 10 years more of experience than me. So of course, they're going to go for that person. So experience is most important, but networking is super important. Sometimes it can trump experience, but it can also just lead to jobs, even where jobs don't exist. I want you to check out a alumnus post that I'm going to link up in the show notes. It's on one of my students, Theodora, and she lives in Romania. And when she reached out to me, she just talked about how there were limited opportunities in Romania for jobs. So I was like, you have got to network. She joined the Successful Wildlife Professional Program and we worked on a lot of stuff. But one thing she consistently did was network and show up. And now she has a job with the people that she was networking with. And she just really always provided a service to them. And now she's working to expand Romania's national parks or protected areas to 20%. So her networking efforts paid off. Another person I want you to check out is Karen Owens. Karen is transitioning from a career in first education, then she worked at humane societies for a long time, and now she is trying to work in wildlife. So networking again was really important to her, and she got invited to be part of some mentoring groups, and she was assigned a mentor in wetlands ecology, which is what she really wants to work in. And networking led to a publication for her. Not only just any publication, but she's not working for a lab or anyone. She is doing volunteer work, and now she's hired part-time. And now she does have a job working in ecology, but this publication is not coming out from that experience or any of her volunteer experiences. This is coming purely from networking, and it's from a big name scientist too. So she reached out to the scientist, and because she had experience working with dogs at the Humane Society, he wanted to interview her. So she got this blog post, and then they started working on a paper together. So now she's working on her first peer-reviewed publication without being in the lab. I mean, that is amazing. So she's had lots of opportunities come out of networking, and these are just two examples. There's many more out there. Oh, and recently, another student of mine, she has been cold emailing people about volunteer opportunities, and someone got back to her not only agreeing to work with her, but also sharing a job posting with her and expressing that they wanted her to apply for that job. So we're hoping that it leads to a job as well. Just start networking. That is the simple thing to do. Make that first step. When it comes to really competitive jobs too, you have to network. If you want to work with marine mammals, big cats, wolves, those really charismatic species, it really does come down to who you know. In addition to experience, you need experience too. So networking is not optional if you're interested in those careers. You have to network. So don't wait, get started today. Mistake number 2 is only networking in person. In fact, I actually think networking online is much more effective than networking in person, and you can combine it with in-person networking. But when the pandemic was happening, I chat with a lot of people. I have the Facebook group, Getting a Job in Wildlife Biology. Make sure you join it if you're interested in becoming a wildlife biologist or in any of the ecology, conservation biology type careers. It's a free Facebook group where I give lots of advice. I also have a weekly newsletter that rounds up the advice. Sign up on my email list and you will get that info. Anyway, I chat with the people who joined my group. And during the pandemic, I would ask people, like, so many opportunities were closed, right? So many people lost their internships, lost their jobs, and jobs weren't really being posted because the world was being shut down. But that doesn't mean you can't continue to work on your career. So I would ask people, are you networking? And of course, they were like, no, there's no conferences. There's no way to meet up. But even now, people say, like, well, I can't afford to go to a conference. It doesn't matter. You can network from your own home. We have the amazing internet. We have all these social media tools, especially LinkedIn is really great, but you can also just look people up online. So there is tons of things that you could be doing to reach out to people, to connect with them, and to get your network built up and your connections built up. And I have a masterclass called Networking for Introverts. And the reason why it's called that is because even though I'm very social, I am actually introverted, and I much prefer, I do love doing things like this. I do love speaking, making videos, but I actually like writing a lot. So for me, with networking, I love sending cold messages and connecting with people. And that's how a lot of my network is built. And I do love going to conferences. Conferences get quite draining though. So from the masterclass, I think it's 2 to 3 hours long. You will learn exactly how to do this, what to say to people, what to ask, how to reach out, how to find people. I go over all of that and way more. Number 3, thinking that networking is passive and something that just happens to you or is dependent on somebody else. This is kind of how I thought for a very long time. I thought I was networking. I was going to conferences. I would go to a conference about once a year. I was very lucky. My lab was pretty well funded. My professor was a new professor, so she had money And we would go to conferences, and same thing at the museum. Our lab was pretty well funded. We would go to conferences, and there would be conferences hosted in Raleigh too. I really had the opportunity to go to conferences every single year, but I never approached it intentionally. I just showed up, and of course, I would give presentations or poster presentations, but I expected the networking to come to me, or I expected to go to talks and listen to talks from people I wanted to meet, and then wait in line to talk to them afterwards. Use this technique if it's a last resort, but really your networking should happen before you go to the conference, and you should be reaching out to people then. So networking is active. It is not something that you just sit around and wait for, because if you sit around and wait for it, it's not going to happen. And even if you meet key people at conferences, like I met some really big names at conferences and I talked to them, but I didn't really know what to do. Like I didn't know what to ask them. We had conversations, but it didn't really lead anywhere. So you want to make networking a verb. You want to think about it as being an action and something that you do. You're not sitting back and just letting the network happen to you. You are making the move. One podcast that really emphasizes this type of action taking is a podcast I did on Sarah Blakely, who is the founder of Spanx. And the reason why I did this podcast is because she ensured her own success as an inventor, as a female business owner who is now a billionaire because of the success of her company. And there are so many lessons to be learned from her that can apply directly to science. And it has nothing to do with owning your own business. And it has to do with the fact that she ensured her own success, and you need to do that too for this career. So I'll include that link in the show notes as well. Number 4, not having a specific intention or purpose to network. As I mentioned, I would go to conferences, I would talk to big names, but I didn't have anything on top of mind in terms of what I wanted to get from them. Like I knew I was supposed to be networking and connecting with people, but I didn't think about it in terms of my next steps. I just thought, well, if I connect with these people, maybe it will pay off later somehow. And in some cases that did work out to some extent. For example, when I was at the University of Missouri, I invited a prominent professor whose research I really admired to come give a seminar talk. So we met several times through the course of those couple of days, and we spent time together. And then later on in my postdoc, I reached out to him again to write a grant to try to do work together. But really, I should have been thinking about that earlier on. Like, how can I set up a postdoc with this person? So you always want to be thinking about the next steps of where it's going. And when you're in a relationship where you want to be a postdoc student or a graduate student, it's not just all about you. It's reciprocal because they're looking for quality postdocs. They're looking for quality students as well. So you really want to think about, what is your intention behind meeting this person? Like, what do you want to get out of them? And that you can keep to yourself. We're going to go through some more tips. So I wouldn't say some of those directly upfront and straight to the point. You want to think about what the person will get from you too, how that person will benefit. But internally to yourself, I want you to think about, what do you actually want from that person? Do you want eventually a job? Do you want a reference? Do you just want to be exposed to this world? And one more thing, just going back to passive networking, a lot of times, especially in people in graduate school, they go to conferences and expect their advisors to introduce them to people and to get them networking. And there are so many advisors that don't do that. A lot of my friends would go to conferences with their professors, and their professors, they would just leave, they would hang out with their friends, and my friends didn't really get introduced to anybody. So again, networking is active. Another mistake that I see people make on LinkedIn, I think LinkedIn is great, but they will just add me as a connection, and I have no idea who they are or what they want from me. I think LinkedIn is great for growing your network, But if you're just going to send a connection to somebody and they don't know who you are, it's just weird. And like, I don't know if I should add you or not. So when you're sending connections on LinkedIn, I always recommend that people send a message alongside it so that the person receiving knows your intention behind wanting to connect with you. Number 5 is making it all about you. And this can show up in several ways. This can show up by you talking too much about yourself or sharing too much information. There's been some people who have contacted me wanting to network with me on LinkedIn, and they send me these messages that are like this long, telling me about what they want. And everyone is busy. So you don't want to throw yourself at the person. It is kind of like dating or a dance. There's a give and take to it. And if you were to go on a dating app or just message somebody from a dating app, it's kind of similar to what we're doing on LinkedIn. We're sending messages to each other or through email. And if I were to be on a first date, or just like talking before the date and being like, here's what happened to me. I was in a marriage of 11 years. And before that, I was in this relationship and I want to be married again by the time it's 2025. And I want to have two kids and I want to get 2 more dogs. And like, if I was to throw this information at my first date or the person who I was trying to get a first date with, you're like, whoa, like this is way too much information. There's not a give and take. Like you're just like throwing all this information at me where it needs to be a discussion. Some of the information is upfront too soon. Like, yes, you do want to talk about your kids or having kids, especially if you're a certain age, but maybe ease into that conversation a little bit. So think about networking the same way. Like maybe you want to network with this person to get a job. But don't start off with being like, I need a job from you or I want a job from you. Warm up to the situation and get to know each other. And again, it's like a give and take. You also don't want to come across as needy and desperate. If you're telling your situation about how you can't get a job or how frustrated you are, and you need a job or you need this to happen for you, again, it's like going on a date. If I were to tell somebody, I really need a boyfriend, I really, really need somebody, I've been alone for such a long time, what are they going to do? They're not going to want to date you. You want to be confident, even if things aren't working out for you at the moment. You want to be confident in what you're doing and where you're going. And you want to have genuine interest in the other person. I read this book a long time ago. My dad had it. And I think it was just like a summer vacation. I think I was like 15 or 16 and I decided to read it. I don't know why, but it was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I'll put it in the show notes. But I love this book because this taught me so much about how to talk to people. Even though I mentioned I'm social, actually a big reason why I'm social now is because I learned how to talk to people. As a kid, I was social, but then when I moved, I became really, really shy for a long time and socially awkward. I didn't know what to say. And then I read this book, and one of the key elements of this book is that people love to talk about themselves. So if you show genuine interest in another person and get them to talk about themselves, they will love you most likely. And you want it to be true and authentic as well. But you just ask them questions about their life. And when it comes to networking, ask them questions about their work, about their research, about how they made it into this career. What path did they take? Like these are the types of get to know the person. And they will be most likely interested in talking back to you. You just don't want to make it all about yourself. And also you don't want to make it focused on like what you can gain, like what you're going to get out of this relationship. You want to think about what you can give as well. Mistake number 6 is starting off with something you need or that you have to do. I would get this a lot when students would approach me with projects that they had to do. So let me give you an example. This is a real email that I got. This is just a follow-up from an email I sent a week ago. I am doing a career research project for English class, and I need an interview with somebody in the profession I am researching. If you could do an email interview with me sometime this week, that would be great. It's not showing that they have any interest in me at all. They didn't say like why they chose me. It doesn't suggest that they know even anything about me. It's just like, I need to complete this English assignment. Can you do this for me? That's exactly what it sounds like. And it's a big turnoff. Now, if you do have an assignment like that, or even if you don't, you're looking to get more information about the field, you can still word it in a way that expresses interest and shows the other person why you've chosen them, and express like how you know about them, why you've chosen them, what you like about them. Make it sound like you've chosen them for this English project, that you've chosen them because you're so interested in them. You've been fascinated by them. You've been following them. Don't just be like, hey, I've got this English project and can you email me your answers? No, I don't even respond to people, honestly, when they send me stuff like that, because it's just zero effort. And it also doesn't even acknowledge the fact that like I'm busy, that I'm helping them out, that I'm doing them a favor. So please don't use this approach. This is a big, big mistake. Along those lines, number 7 is lack of preparation. If you do reach out to somebody, both in the invite and in meeting with them, you want to ask them questions and you want to have conversations with them about stuff that is difficult to know from the internet. So if you're talking to somebody about their career and you ask them where they did their PhD and what they did their PhD on, for most people, that is on the internet and very easy to do. So do your research, read about them, read some of their papers, look them up on the internet and do your research. And don't be lazy about this. Use their time. Everyone is busy. They are giving you their time. Ask them things that cannot easily be found. Number 8 is another pet peeve of mine. It is being super casual. So it's kind of similar to the other message that I wrote, but this is just like, in addition to not being courteous of my time or not explaining like why they chose me or expressing that they know anything about me, this is also just being way too casual. Like if you're trying to network with me, don't talk to me like I'm your friend. You always want to address people by their official titles. So if they have a PhD, you want to call them Dr. So-and-so. You don't want to just say, hey, hi. So this is another real message that I got on Facebook. Listen to how casual this is. Hi, do you think I could interview you in the next couple of days? Couple days, not even couple of days. It can just be on the phone or Zoom and will only take 10 to 15 minutes of your time. They didn't even use my name. That could just be like, that could be like a copy and pasted email or message. This was on Facebook. That could be a copy and pasted message that could be sent to many different people. And then there's a couple of more messages. I didn't respond to any of this. It is for school. And then I asked, could I get your email, please? So it's just, again, like not respectful, super casual, not courteous. So don't make these mistakes. And then the final one is neglecting to follow up. Like I mentioned, all of us are busy. So you do want to do a follow-up message or email if once a certain amount of time has passed. And I'm actually really appreciative for people who do this, because a lot of times my inbox just gets overloaded. Things get moved to the bottom. And I do want to reach out back to that person, or I do want to help them with their interview and take the time to be interviewed by them. But like I said, other things take priority and that message just gets buried to the bottom. So reach out again and follow up. And the worst that could happen is they don't answer, they don't reply, they ignore you, or they say no. But it is so worth it to follow up. And that also shows that you're really interested in them, especially, well, you're going to, because you're listening to this podcast, you're going to express why you're interested in them and your intention. So this really shows that you're interested in them and that you have a strong intention and desire to connect with them. In addition to sending reminder emails, another way of following up is when you go to conferences or meet people in real life, you want to create a connection with them online so you can maintain that connection. Because if you're at a conference, chances are you're not going to be living in the same area. So that was a great way for you to stay present and stay in the forefront of that person. When they're on LinkedIn, they will see the posts that you make. So I always recommend that people do that. Okay, thank you so much. So you're making any of the 9 mistakes? No problem. You've listened to this episode, so correct it, flip it around. And especially number 1, start networking now. And use the tips that I've provided to help you network. And I want you to let me know what happens. Let me know your successes. I'm always celebrating successes in the Getting a Job in Wildlife Biology Facebook group. So you can tag me in that group. You can send me a message on Facebook. Or you can just tag me in any of the social medias. I am at Fancy Scientist, and on Instagram, there is an underscore in between Fancy and Scientist. But I really want to hear back from you how these tips are working for you. Thank you so much, and make sure to check out Networking for Introverts. It is going to just open your world up for you. And now is such an exciting time to live in because you literally can connect with anyone across the world virtually. That is so exciting. Thank you so much for listening, and please share this episode so we can get people networking with each other. Thanks again. Have a great day. Be kind to each other and always be kind to our little animal friends. Bye.